Hello and welcome back. Today, because I'm taking a break from my dungeon generator, I decided to make a new thing, just a very simple thing that adds these towers to your world. You just have to paste it in MC Edit, run it when it's pasted in, and you get these cool looking towers, all generated nicely in vanilla. Good for extra adventuring. All you have to do is press this button. I'll give you instructions on how to get the machine in your world. And once the button is pressed, it will start working. It will start generating towers all over the place in a 4,000 block radius. Now, if you put this command in that I'm putting on screen, you can see how the progress is going, so you know how long you have to wait. It'll generate 60 of them, and then it'll delete itself, and you can just start playing the game all nice and in vanilla. For now, I'm going to skip around while it generates and show you a little bit of the inside of the tower. You see there's a skeleton spawner. You can open this door, go in. The dirt floor uses dirt with the data value of 1, so it can't have grass spread onto it. And there's a ladder up to the top to get to the spawner, disable it. You can explore it a little bit. I have a little bit of a secret inside of it. And another thing I want to note is you can also edit this tower as much as you want. You could even build a new structure within the bounding box of the area, and it would be generated into your world just as you want. For example, here I'm adding green wool into it, and that green wool will now be generated into all of the new structures. Another thing I wanted to note is the fact that you can go inside of it, and these two command blocks, this one with the comparator on it, first all, and my frame rate's really bad because it's very CPU intensive. This one, if you change the 60 that's there, you can actually change how many towers generate. And over here, this command block, if you change this 4,000, you can change what the radius of the the structures will. So currently, if I go out more than negative 4,000 or 4,000 in any direction, I will not find any more towers. However, they are going to be very spotted and somewhat rare. A little less rare than villages from what I find, but yeah. So anyway, now the tower, I've skipped to it being mostly done. When it's done, it will just delete the entire structure, so it's not in your world and you can just play normally. At this point, you could put in the command to change your game mode back to survival, and if you've done the optional thing that shows the delete when it's going to delete itself, you can disable that too. And then you can just play normally. The thing sets the world spawn to 00, and this it sets the time to day. So you're ready to explore, make your world, do whatever you want in it, and find the towers as the extra challenge you can do with this. The towers do find a while to find, but if you go out from any direction from spawn, you are bound to eventually find one, from what I can tell. It might just take a while. Like, right now, it took me about till 1,800 till I found this one for the video. Also, you might notice there's the green wool inside this one. That's because I added it in, and then this one was generated after I added this in. So that's a pretty cool thing, showing off it actually functioning properly. Other than that, it's just showing you everything generates properly. Sometimes, because of the way it generates, being a clone command set to masked, you can generate it, and it'll have things like grass and mushrooms inside of it, because apparently either it just generates even with ground that had grass on it, or that stuff might generate afterward. Anyway, I'm going to skip to a next one, maybe. Except for this poor sheep. My gosh, how did you get there? Anyway, back to the main thing. And I found another tower. Right off here in the middle between a mountain and a roofed forest. I liked this tower a lot. I found one other one that just looked a bit better than this in another world, but I didn't get any recording of it. It did kind of generate weirdly with the base poking out of the mountain, and you can't get in the door, but it still looks really cool either way. You can just jump up on the roof if you want, but yeah, This just shows off that the terrain won't mess up too badly if it's generated on a poor landscape. Flat landscapes will look the best, and sometimes you get lucky on things like hills, but otherwise I want to see if I can find a desert one. Yeah. So here's the desert sandy one. This one will generate on sand, while the other one generates on stone and grass. And though it looks like this one generated in the water, I will point out these will not generate in oceans, and this one probably just generated on a piece of sand on the edge. Other than that, I do want to mention, try not to paste this into a world where 0, is in the middle of an ocean. It's probably not the best. And, of course, now that I've showed you off how it works, in a bit of a convoluted way, I just want to show off how to install these towers into your world. Now remember, they are randomly located along the map, and simply all you have to do to add them in is first you start up your world like I did here. Then the next step is to teleport yourself to the coordinates 7, 75, 8. After you've done that, you let the world load. Give it a moment. My computer's really bad if you can't tell. And once it's loaded, like it is now, you can then just put in the command set block 7, 75, 8, and then whatever block you want. Right now I'm just using stone 1, just to have something that's noticeable in all this green. And after you're done that, you can go to MC Edit for the last part of this. Don't forget to save and quit your world. In MC Edit, next, the last thing you want to do, after downloading the schematic, you simply load it, paste it into your world. See where that little, it might look red on your screen, but I haven't updated my textures on MC Edit, so it's purple. You want to match that up with the piece of stone, so it copies over it. And don't forget to copy with air included. After that, you just save and re-enter your world. And that was actually where the video started, was after I pasted that in and started my world, so you can simply play it. And of course, now that I've shown you how to install it and what it does, here's the part on how it works. Now, the first process in it is, of course, you press the button and it starts up the process by deleting the button, setting the world spawn, setting the scoreboard objective, delete things to know when it should be deleted, and making so command block outputs do not show. The next process right here is simply setting a redstone block to get the loop started. I probably didn't need to do that, but I just did it for convenience sake. This command block simply just deletes the redstone block, and the one next to this command block is actually the one, that checks the scoreboard if it's 60. If it's 60, then it deletes the whole thing. If it's not, it just continues the process. Now, this just sets a repeater for something. And the other one spawns an invulnerable squid with a custom name. This name is called Squid Tower, and this is how we know where the tower should be cloned to. This spreads the squid in the region, so this loads a chunk in an area, and the squid will have the tower cloned onto it in that chunk. Now these command blocks, these simply detect if there's a grass block, a sand block, a stone block under the squid, and if a tower should generate. If it fails, it simply goes into this loop, which resets the thing, killing the squid and setting a new redstone block in the start area. That's why I had the second block setting the repeater there. These areas, these get some of the processes started. I believe this is the one that sets the air, and this one actually starts the generator itself up there. And this is the process that resets it so the comparators aren't on afterward. Also, I accidentally, to demonstrate it, activated the generator for a moment. So, pay no mind to that. Aside from that, the next process, if it wasn't for one bug, I would have just been able to use a single command block, maybe 2 or 3, for this entire rest of the part of the generator. This one places a redstone block here, and practically all of these command blocks past this first set of 3. All of these are practically the same thing, just slightly different, so the process has made sure it doesn't fail. I was having an issue because when I went to clone the tower relative to the squid, if the tower was poking slightly out of the chunk when being cloned, it would fail. So the only real solution was to simply do the clone command 9 times, each one being in a different selection of, like, this one's just right at the squid. The next one is, I think, relative 6 away from the squid. The next one's -6 away from the squid. These are on the X axis. Then it does it on the Z axis. And the squid will also, another thing is, the squid needs to be in the center. If I were to do it perfectly relative, the squid would have been here in relative to the tower. So I had to put those -5s in to make sure it didn't mess up. Now the next command block here is, if it actually activates, it goes on to continue the loop, and it also breaks this so none of the others can activate, so we don't have multiple towers activating. And also, yeah, when the redstone block is activated, it'll continue the process. It'll kill the squid, reset all these command blocks in repeaters, and it'll set a new redstone block in the below area, as I show here. And yeah, the rest of these commands just make sure everything's running well. Also, underneath, I forget to mention, underneath there are these other command blocks. Those are the ones that actually add 1 to the delete thing objective that makes sure the tower generator is deleted. So yeah, other than that, another thing to note is the second set of these command blocks above. The second set is actually the same as the first set, just cloning the sandstone tower, because the sandstone tower is actually, it only generates on sand, so I had to make sure to specify a different set of command blocks specifying that tower. So I actually want to ask, while I'm just dilly-dallying in this pre-recording, if anybody might be able to help me fix this machine. And I'll get into a little bit more depth here in just a moment. So when I say I want a little help, so there's a bit of a issue when it comes to generating, which I'm going to explain while I explain how these squids generate the towers out. So what happens is that diamond block would be the generator, and the green blocks are the loaded chunks. When a squid is spawned, you'd think, yeah, it can load easily in the loaded chunks, and it does. It loads fine. But when you spread players in a squid into a new chunk, it'll actually, because it's being spread player, you can do it with any entity. It'll actually load that single chunk it's in. I believe Simply Sark has more video on this. So that means if these lapis blocks all being squids, if I spread them all into these different chunks, though in the actual generator it's one at a time, it'll actually load all of these chunks and be able to use them to generate towers in them. So all of these would work fine, except for one little issue which I'll get into in just a moment, being the fact that if you can only clone things into loaded chunks. So if the squid is on the edge of the chunk, you cannot generate the structure because all these chunks around it are unloaded. Which, my one solution I was having was maybe I could use hoppers, have the squid summoned, and then have a bunch of hoppers set into the chunk, so that, for example, if it generates out like this and then loads this chunk next to it, that might work. I don't know if these chunks here are loaded the same way as spawn chunks. But, of course, the tower generates fine anyway if the squid is spread into the middle of the chunk. There's not a single problem with that. However, unless I can figure out something like the hoppers, just to demonstrate, if it's on the if the squid is spread to the edge of a chunk, it'll fail, just like this, because if this part of the tower isn't in the chunk, then the whole tower fails. And so that's where the issue arises. Well, you'd think, oh, the squid has to be on the very edge of the chunk, so failure is not very often, except for the fact that it's only the 6x6 block that actually properly fits the squid in with the tower, because of how large the tower is. So that means any of these edges, it'll be fine, but anywhere outside of them, it'll fail. And this is where the solution that I currently have is to sort of wiggle room the tower into the chunk. So the way that works is simply, if the squid is like right here, and it's of course failing, then the process will then check 6 blocks away from it. And if that fails, it tries 6 blocks in this direction. If that fails, 6 blocks... did I get that right? Yeah. 6 blocks in this direction. And again. And again. As you can tell, this is going. It just keeps doing it till it finds one that it can actually generate in. And once it does, it'll then just skip these last two, which, by the way, I messed up here. Apologize for that. It'll skip the last two processes. And my gosh, I got sidetracked. It'll skip the processes and just generate the one tower that worked properly. Now, of course, this isn't the most optimum way to do things, because I want to eventually extend this generator to be able to generate multi-chunk sized items into the game. So if anyone could maybe figure out how to help me with this, a few ideas I had was, of course, those hoppers. Another thing is squids on separate teams being spread around each other like this, so they have a how far away they should be spread. That's been buggy, and I haven't been able to get that to work. The other option is if the game eventually updates where I can use spread players relative to something, because here I'm going to show you spread players. It has to use absolute coordinates. It cannot use relative coordinates. So if I were to /execute at squid tower spread players other squids, it just fails because it does that not available number thing, because it doesn't have, for some reason, out of all the things, it doesn't have relative coordinates. So yeah, if any of you could maybe figure out a way around my problem here, I'd be amazed. I'm going to be trying to figure out a way around the problem, but it seems for now I just cannot get this to work any better than it does currently. I'd love it just to be a single command block to clone it, and then a few command blocks to summon extra things to load the extra chunks, but at this point doesn't seem that's gonna work. Anywho, aside from me wanting to progress this project further, I hope you enjoyed seeing just the inner workings of this new concept, and yeah, I guess that's about it. See you guys later.